now I'm getting ready to actually make the marinade for the chicken, and I'm taking kind of a recipe from a site called Dirty Euro, and it calls for 28 ounces of chicken, a half a cup of yogurt, a tablespoon and a half of minced garlic, a tablespoon of minced ginger, 2 teaspoons of garam masala, 1 teaspoon of turmeric, cumin, red chili powder, and salt. I don't have, well, I might have it somewhere in my freezer, but I'm gonna go ahead and use canned chicken. And each of these jars has about a pound of chicken in it. And so I'm gonna double the recipe because I want to make sure that my husband has leftovers and things that he can bring with him to work. So I'm gonna make a big batch of it. And so I'm gonna double everything that I just mentioned. And I don't have red chili powder, so I'm gonna use some cayenne pepper. Hopefully that's roughly the same thing. And then I also don't have any fresh garlic or ginger, so I'm gonna use the powdered versions of both and just kind of try and guess on the actual amounts that I need to use for that. So we are just gonna go ahead and get mixing real quick. This shouldn't take too long. I'm just realizing I probably should have mixed up the marinade in here before I put the chicken, but well, just a dirty and extra dish, I suppose. That's a lot of chicken. Holy crap. I'm just gonna mix it in here. This container looks like about 16 ounces, so we need a half cup, so we need about half of this. Yeah, close enough. This calls for a teaspoon of turmeric. So we'll add a tablespoon. 2 teaspoons of garam masala. Tablespoon won't fit in the jar. Teaspoon of cumin. Oh, come on. Oh, shoot. Out of the jar. I have no idea how much that actually was. Teaspoon, so remember doubling everything and then a little bit. So we like things really hot, so I added extra of that. Extra salt. Okay, so now for ginger and the garlic. I know that the dehydrated stuff and the mid-stuffs or the powdered stuff is much more potent, and this calls for a tablespoon and a half. So I think what I'm gonna do is like a tablespoon. Oh shoot, there's a tablespoon and a half of garlic. Okay. So we're just gonna do a little garlic. 1, 2, 3. And I'm just gonna mix this up and put it over the chicken. And then kind of stir up the chicken. This is very thick yogurt. So I'm just going to cover this with saran wrap and put it in the fridge until probably an hour or so before I want to start dinner. I think I'll probably take this out maybe around 5 o'clock or so, and we'll take it from there. So now it's about 4:20, it's 4:22, and we're gonna get started on making the naan. And then as soon as we get the naan into proofing, then I'm gonna get started on finishing up the butter chicken. So like I said, none of these recipes are actually my own. I like Indian spices and things like that, but I kind of just wanted to make like a real Indian dinner, I guess. And so I'm just following some recipes and hopefully gonna get some inspiration. And then from that, I can come up with my own recipes, but I'll link to the videos down below. And this one is from, I think is Served from Scratch. And this one is just garlic butter naan, I think it's called. And so we're just gonna get started on this and make it real quick and get it proofing, and then we can move on to the next step. The first thing that we need to do is, the recipe calls for instant yeast, but I only have active yeast, but the procedure for it in the recipe is what you would typically do with the active dry yeast. So hopefully it'll be fine because I'm not going to the store. So what we gotta do, we got the warm water, and then we need a tablespoon of sugar. Tablespoon of sugar, and then 2 teaspoons of instant yeast, but I'm going to use active yeast and hopefully it'll be fine. Okay, just going to set this aside. Next it says, mix the flour and the salt. Probably should have made sure I had flour. We're in luck. Okay, this calls for 4 cups of flour. This is not an instructional video. I'm just showing what I'm doing. And then a teaspoon and a half of salt. Oh, tiny. Okay. What we need to do next is add the yogurt and the milk. So we got 3/4 of a cup of milk. Sorry. So it says to create a well in the center. Okay. Then it says to slowly add this mixture. And then it says to slowly incorporate the walls of the well into it, like you would making pasta. I've never made pasta. So I have no idea what I'm doing. So, once upon a time, I used to work in pastry, but didn't really get a ton of experience with bread making. I made it a couple times in my life. It is a skill that I would like to develop, especially when it comes to more traditional cooking, like sourdough and things like that, because I don't really like to consume wheat, really, but I will consume it someday in fermented form. And my husband doesn't have any issues with it, which is why I'm making this for him. And for me, it just doesn't do well for me. But I have noticed that I can have like real fermented sourdough and things like that just fine. I don't have much issue with it at all, but I just haven't learned how to make it, and I don't care to buy it, so I don't. It says to incorporate the sides of the well as you mix, like you would when making pasta. Mix well until smooth, and then on a lightly floured surface knead for 3 to 4 minutes. So you get all the flour incorporated into it, and then start kneading it. Good enough, I hope. Try not to throw in your shirt. timing myself. Okay, now I'm timing myself. Okay, pretty sure we're close enough. I'm just gonna call it good at that. So the way that you can tell with most breads, especially yeast breads, well, you can tell yeast gluten breads. You can tell when it's done. You just take a little ball of it, and this is the way that I was taught how to do it. And you just take a little ball of it, you roll it into a ball, and then you just kind of stretch it in your fingers. Stretch and stretch and stretch. And then I think this is called the window method. And you stretch it until you can kind of see through it without it shouldn't tear like that, but I just don't have the patience to keep going. But you pull it until you can tell how much you've worked the gluten. So it's good enough. So what we're gonna do with this, I'm just gonna roll it into a ball. And I do that just kind of rolling it under like this. See, and you can even see like when you're rolling it into a ball, you can see like these little teeny bits of tears. And honestly, you could probably just keep going like this. All you're doing is trying to pull and stretch the gluten until it gets its strength. But I gotta get moving, so I'm just kind of taking it and pulling it under like that. You do it on both sides at the same time. Okay, so we have it all rolled into our ball, and we're gonna go ahead and just kind of spray it the bowl. You can just brush it with oil, whatever you'd like to do, and then the top as well. We're just going to cover it with a tea towel and we'll leave it alone until it doubles in size, and probably take about an hour. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to actually cooking the butter chicken. So normally I'm sure if you were doing a regular batch, you could just get by with kind of a big skillet, but I'm making this big double batch, so I'm going to use my big broth pot. So the first thing that we have to do is warm up, it's butter, 2 tablespoons of butter. So we're gonna put 4 tablespoons of, it said ghee, but so we're gonna do 2 tablespoons of butter and 2 tablespoons of tallow, because that's what we got. We're gonna go ahead and use a little bit of extra, 3 tablespoons of butter. And totally gonna guess about 2 tablespoons of ghee, tallow. Okay, so we're gonna let that cook or melt down, and then we're gonna chop up the onions.
Oh, I'm gonna go.
Thank you.
Thanks for sleeping over this hot kitchen all day.
Basically, the
For
30%
my
off,
bill.
there's no installation.
No matter what you think.
Yeah.
So now all we're doing is just cooking down the onions and letting them sweat. Okay, so I think these are done enough. And so now we're going to add the garlic and the ginger. And it says to let it cook for 1 minute. It says until fragrant, but we're using powdered stuff, so I don't know if it's going to get fragrant. Okay, and then now it says to add in coriander, cumin, and garam masala. Got them all portioned out ahead of time. What do you need? It says to cook that for 20 seconds. Stirring occasionally. I don't know how you can occasionally stir it for 20 seconds. Okay, so now it says to add crushed tomatoes, chili powder, and salt. We don't actually have crushed tomatoes, but we have canned tomatoes, so it's all gonna get word up in the end, so I'm not worried about it. Actually, I think I'm gonna add a little bit more. My husband likes lots of sauce, so I want to make sure there's plenty of sauce for him. Yeah, I'm gonna have another can. And then it says to let it simmer for about 10 to 15 minutes. Get the rice going at the same time here. And I have 2 cups of rice. So if I get this lid off. And nearly 2 cups of regular homemade chicken broth. And about a little over 2 cups of rice. Water. And I'm just going to bring that up to a boil. And when it boils, I'm just going to turn it down and let it simmer until it's done. So now with the butter chicken here, what we need to do is it says to take it off the heat, and it says to throw it in a blender in like little batches and stuff. But I have one of those wand mixers, so I'm just going to use that, and I'm going to mix this all up. It says to stir in the cream. 2 cups of cream. Just a smidgen more. It says a tablespoon of sugar. And then it says you want to add, where's that at? Kasori menthe or fenugreek seeds. I'm guessing this probably is what it is. We just had it in our cupboard, so I'm guessing Robert had it. So it says a half of a teaspoon. And that's an interesting smell. So I'm going to add a teaspoon because we're doubling everything. And I'm just going to stir it up. Hopefully that should be plenty of sauce for Robert. I hope. And now we're going to add the chicken. The chicken that's been marinating for probably 7 or 8 hours. I don't know what time I started it. Oh yeah, that is very saucy. You should be happy with that. So we're just going to put this back on the heat, and I'm going to let it simmer for, is it 8 minutes? 8 to 10 minutes. And now we're going to get started back onto the naan. And it says you want to split this into 12 even-sized balls. So we got the skillet going over there, and we're just going to roll these into balls. Okay, and then it says to roll them flat and brush one side with butter. So I need to warm up a little bit of butter. Okay, so I don't actually have a pastry brush, so I'm gonna improvise. Right, so we got the pan, and it says to cook it for 2 minutes. I think that we need to flip it.
Okay. Oh.
Good. You're welcome.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Oh. So I'm prepared for longer. Yes. trying to get in the center while I was jealous.
You are?
Sorry.
I'm okay with that.
Thank you. It's hot too.
Mm-hmm.
It's heat.
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh.
Instructions. Judge on that one. I have no idea what it's done.
But I want to eat. That's all.
And we're just going to heat up a little more butter because we're supposed to add
Yes.
butter to it, garlic butter. So we're going to add a little bit of garlic to that. Now it's
It's
naan.
very good. Now it's naan. Hey, wash my hands. I'm sorry. Yeah. You know me, I like to wash my hands.
Did I do good on the naan?
Mm-hmm.
I've never made anything like that before.
I think I'll eat most of the naan more than the rice.
I figured. So I think that's about all I have for today. I'm just gonna go ahead and eat some of this dinner here and probably edit a few videos and hit the sack. So we'll see you next weekend for a bunch more projects that whatever I happen to have going on next weekend. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining me. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you next weekend. Thanks for watching. Bye.